And I call Mrs. Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the motion standing in my name on the notice paper relating to a telecommunications tower in Fadden.
Question is that the motion be agreed to. Mrs. Morris.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today on behalf of hundreds of Fadden residents who love their local neighbourhood and want the best for their community. Many of these residents contacted my office after a development application was lodged in March by the Indara Group for a 25-metre tall Optus tower, phone tower, to be erected on the corner of Bugden Avenue and Nicklin Crescent in Fadden. Now, I know my Brindabella colleague across the chamber, Mr. Werner Gibbings, is very familiar with this site and has a love for it himself, being a Fadden resident. But for anyone who is unfamiliar with this piece of land, Mr. Assistant Speaker, please let me try to describe it. Imagine in your own home suburb the most beloved outdoor community space there is. That beautiful piece of scenic nature where you take your baby for a walk in their pram, or where you take your young children to play in the playground and to watch the ducks while you take a moment for yourself, or while you catch up with other mums and dads who are there doing the same thing. A place where your children get a small taste of independence as they meet their friends to play and maybe even do a little bit of fishing. A place where older residents enjoy walks and talks, peaceful moments surrounded by nature and bird life. A place where locals can let off steam and play some tennis, enjoying the precious outdoor recreation. That is what this parcel of green space is for so many Fadden residents. Now imagine in that most beloved piece of outdoor community space in your home suburb, plonking a 25-metre tall tower with its supporting infrastructure, a concrete pad, a gravel driveway for access vehicles, utility boxes for maintenance and fencing to enclose the structure. I bet that thought is quite abrupt, intrusive, offensive even, that something so out of character could possibly be erected in one of the most beloved outdoor spaces in the community. That is what has upset so many residents who contacted my office when the purple sign notifying the community to the development application was hammered into the ground on the corner of Bugden Avenue and Nicklin Crescent earlier this year. When my office became aware of the development application, I wanted to know what the broader Fadden community thought about it, not just a handful of residents who happened to come across the purple sign on their walk that afternoon. That's why I conducted a survey seeking the views of every resident who was willing to share. At the outset, I want to sincerely thank every resident who engaged with my survey and who took the time to share with me their thoughts about the proposed development and about the quality of their mobile reception. And I would like to also acknowledge the presence of some of those residents who have joined us in the chamber here today. Welcome to you, and thank you very much for being here. My survey generated 167 responses from Fadden residents, and it is my honour and privilege to give a voice to those views by sharing the results of those 167 responses with the ACT Assembly today. My survey asked a range of questions. It asked, are you satisfied with the proposed location? Are you satisfied with your mobile reception, and how would you rate your phone coverage? Which site identified by the developer would be the most suitable for a phone tower? It asked for feedback on why they did or why they did not support the proposal. The results are compelling, and part of my motion today calls on the ACT government to acknowledge them as they capture the views of so many families in the community. According to my survey, 79% of Fadden residents do not support the proposed location for the tower. Respondents provided a range of reasons for not supporting the chosen location, citing the negative impact it would have on the scenic nature of the area, the wildlife and the bird life, the negative impact it would have on the community's recreational assets, including the tennis court, playground and nearby pond, the close proximity to homes. This tower would literally be on the front doorstep of so many homes. the negative impact on home values, and the potential creation of blind spots for cars turning the corner on Bugden Avenue and Nicklin Crescent. One resident said the tower would, quote, epically ruin what is a beautiful location and surrounding area. Another resident said, quote, it will have a significant impact visually on the nature and landscape of the area. Another said it will detract from the lovely family feel of that area. Another resident said, this is also green space in the middle of the suburb and should not be destroyed by a large compound. Another resident said, this proposal will ruin the natural aesthetic of the entrance to Fadden Hills, which is currently a lovely green space with native trees and grasses. Why do we as residents have to have our natural environment ruined? Find a better way. Another resident said, this is a recreation area for families and has been developed to promote community interaction with a pond and tennis courts. The tower would not only detract from this recreational area aesthetically, it would potentially reduce the ability for locals to use the area. And another resident said, many of us use that area as recreation, walking, playing and gathering. And there are so many more quotes that I could share, but I am conscious of my time. So here's a rapid-fire version of residents describing the tower. Eyesore, intrusive, imposing, bad, extremely unattractive, inconsistent with the neighbourhood, obnoxious, and I could go on. These are not my words, Mr. Assistant Speaker. These are the words of so many Fadden residents. I do think, Mr. Assistant Speaker, it is also very important to highlight that a sizable portion of residents who responded to my survey said they needed better mobile reception. 28% of residents said they were not satisfied with their phone reception. And in today's day and age, that is an unacceptably high proportion of residents who cannot get decent reception. All of us in this chamber rely on our phones for just about every aspect of our lives, to communicate and manage our work, family, friends, community involvement, banking, all manner of communications. One resident described their phone reception as terrible. Another said mobile reception is a problem for us in Fadden to the point that we are unable to make and receive phone calls from our home. Likewise, another resident said we have no coverage at home, and another, our coverage is the worst. Again, Mr. Assistant Speaker, these are not my words, but rather these are the words and the shared sentiment of so many in the Fadden community. It's very clear that Fadden does need improved mobile services, and it is important that residents with poor mobile phone reception have better access to telecommunication networks so they can get on with their lives just like everyone else. But my survey found that the majority of Fadden residents are not against having a phone tower in Fadden. They're not against better phone reception for their neighbours who need it. Rather, they are firmly of the view that there are better sites in Fadden that could be developed that would achieve the same reception objectives that the corner of Bugden Avenue and Nicklin Crescent would, as the development application itself has pointed out. More than half of survey respondents, 51%, preferred alternate locations in Fadden for the tower. The development application cited at least 3 alternate locations that would achieve the same mobile coverage objectives that the current site would. They are Candidate B, Waniassa Hills Nature Reserve, north of Appel Crescent and east of Erindale Drive. Candidate C, Fadden Hills Pond Public Reserve. And Candidate D, Waniassa Hills Nature Reserve, 35 to 39 Nicklin Crescent. 41% of respondents said their preference for an alternate site was Candidate B, Waniassa Hills north of Appel Crescent and east of Erindale Drive. This compares to only 32% who said they were not satisfied with any of the proposed locations. So it is clear, Mr. Assistant Speaker, that the majority of residents surveyed are not against a phone tower and better reception in Fadden. Rather, 51% of them preferred alternate locations in Fadden and 41% agreed Candidate B was the most suitable option. And this is where we run into another problem that my motion seeks to address. According to the development application, Candidates B and D in Waniassa Hills were not allowed to be investigated as an option by the developer because the ACT government's Environment, Planning and Sustainable Development Directorate prohibited them from progressing to development application stage. The development application notes that while the elevated nature of these candidates achieved the coverage objectives, an agreement could not be reached with the land custodian, which is the EPSDD. The ACT government has closed off any alternate windows of opportunity for better phone coverage without ever allowing them to be assessed by the Territory Planning Authority for their suitability. And that's why I'm calling on the ACT government to publish the evaluation that they have used to justify that position, and to also direct the EPSDD to go back and have another look at the proposal so that the developer can, in the very least, progress to a development application stage for those sites. If the reasons underpinning the EPSDD's initial assessment are legitimate and worthy, then maybe it's the case that the Planning Authority wouldn't approve the DA anyway. But the point is, we will never know because that evaluation has not been made public and because the ACT government has proactively blocked both the developer and the Planning Authority from ever investigating and assessing those options. The only pathway forward that the ACT government has currently given the developer is to build a 25-metre tall tower on the most prized recreational community asset in Fadden. What other options are there for better phone coverage in Fadden? Candidate C, which is practically on top of the Fadden Pond, was rightly rejected because of the negative impact it would have on the scenic nature of the reserve and the high environmental and visual amenity impact. And yet, Fadden Pond is barely a stone's throw away from the chosen site on the corner of Bugden Avenue and Nicklin Crescent. I should note that the current development application for the corner of Bugden Avenue and Nicklin Crescent is currently under assessment, and 134 submissions were lodged to the Territory's Planning Authority. We shall all be watching and waiting to see what the outcome of that development application is. But whatever that outcome is, it will leave at least one issue unresolved, and that is why I again urge the Assembly to support my motion today so that we can come to a resolution. As it stands, if the application is supported by the Planning Authority, by not allowing alternate sites to be assessed, the government would be giving a green light to the development of a site that the community has very clearly rejected. If the application is rejected by the Planning Authority, the government would be blocking Fadden residents from gaining access to better phone reception, which is something many of them desperately need, by not allowing alternative sites to be assessed. So my motion, it's sought to find a middle road, a road that seeks to, one, protect an outdoor native green space widely used by the community for family and recreational activities, and two, ensure that Fadden residents who have effectively been unable to use their phones at home will have access to better phone reception. Again, I would like to thank all members of the Fadden community who completed my survey, and I commend my motion to the Assembly.
Members, now the question is whether the motion as amended be agreed to. Ms Morris, in closing.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I just want to thank everyone who has engaged with and contributed to debate on my motion today. My motion has attempted to give a voice to hundreds of Fadden residents who have wanted to share their deeply held views about both the suitability of the proposed site and the need for better phone reception in their community. And in closing, I just want to touch on the government's amendments and why the opposition did not support them. But before I do so, I do want to thank members of the government and the crossbench for accepting part of my motion which calls for an acknowledgement of the concerns that we have heard today from Fadden residents. I am very pleased that the Assembly has acknowledged my community survey findings and has acknowledged that the community is overwhelmingly concerned about this site, but that they are also concerned about their phone reception and want better phone reception too. So overwhelmingly, as we heard from my survey, 79% of respondents had said no thank you to where this development proposal was lodged. 28% had said that they do need better reception, and 51% had said they preferred alternate sites for the development. So I thank you all for acknowledging those findings today. I am, however, disheartened and concerned that given these acknowledgements that we have all just agreed to, I am disheartened that, and despite the tension between Labor members and Greens members from other telecommunications issues that have come to this place, I'm disheartened that they have worked together today to block genuine attempts to open up a pathway forward for alternate sites to be considered. Because by removing 3D from my motion, which would have required the EPSDD to reevaluate the suitability of candidates B and D, to enable them to progress to a development application stage, the government, with the support of the Greens, have effectively given the green tick of approval for this development to be undertaken in the site that has been talked about today. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I think those opposite should be in no doubt of the message that they have sent to the Fadden community today by not allowing a reassessment of those alternate sites. The government, with, again, the support of the Greens, have ensured that as it stands, there is now currently only one pathway forward for a phone tower in Fadden. And that pathway is to plonk a 25-metre tall phone tower on one of the most cherished pieces of outdoor recreational community green space that there is in Fadden. Something that the Labor Party and the Greens have just acknowledged is an option they know that the Fadden community fundamentally rejects. So we will, of course, await the outcome of the development application, but whatever that outcome is, it does continue to present a dilemma for the Fadden community. If the application is successful, the government's amendment, which has just been passed with the support of the Greens, has blocked any other option from being considered for development to protect the corner of Bugden Avenue and Nicklin Crescent from development. And if that application is rejected, then the government's amendment, which was just passed with the support of the Greens, has blocked any other option from being considered for development to deliver better phone services to Fadden residents. My motion had sought to find a middle road to take us forward, but those amendments, which the Greens have supported, has blocked that. So I am disappointed with the outcome, and while I'm grateful that you've acknowledged the community's concerns and that you will publish the findings, I am very disappointed that Labor with the Greens have blocked this pathway forward. Mr. Werner-Gibbings has said that there are many other options that are not listed in the development application, and I really hope that that is the case, and we will work very hard to make sure that an alternate site can be found, because if it's not the case, then what has transpired today in the Assembly is that the Labor government's amendment, which has just been passed with the support of the Greens, has blocked any other sites from even being considered by the planning authority. So again, Deputy Speaker, thank you to all members who have engaged in debate today.